Out in Hollywood, a lot of people come up missing. Feels like it might be a lot of that in order to control, traumatize. They want to monetize and traumatize. They can't control, you get what I'm saying? They can control Shaq. They can control Charles Barkley. They can control LeBron James.
Kanye West is back at it again, and this time, he's dropping some major bombshells on the music industry. He's claiming that Clive Davis, the legendary record executive who launched the careers of Whitney Houston and so many others, was absolutely terrified of Barry White. And no, we're not talking about a fear of his powerful voice or his larger-than-life persona. According to Kanye, Clive's fear ran much deeper, rooted in some seriously shady dealings. Kanye's alleging that Clive Davis was involved in some deep, dark stuff, exploiting young and vulnerable artists, paying them pennies while he lined his own pockets with millions. But that's not all. His activities involve some other stuff as well. And who had the proof? Barry White. Kanye claims Barry had tapes, records, documentation of everything Clive was doing. He was about to expose the whole rotten system, and Clive knew it. This wasn't just a rivalry. It was a war for control, a battle between an industry giant and an artist who dared to challenge his power. Kanye's suggesting that this fear wasn't an isolated incident. He's implying that Clive's entire career was built on manipulation and exploitation, and that Barry White was the one person who had the guts to stand up to him. This isn't just gossip. This is about the dark underbelly of the music industry, the power dynamics, the greed, and the lengths some people will go to protect their empires. Kanye's basically saying what many have only whispered about for years, that things aren't always what they seem, and sometimes those accidents and unfortunate events are anything but. Get ready, because this is about to get very, very interesting. Now, apparently greed was the driving force behind Clive Davis's fear, that insatiable hunger for power and control that ultimately consumes those who succumb to it. He portrays Barry White not just as a legendary singer, but as a man who understood the insidious ways the music industry uses its power to crush talent and maintain control. While the public saw the romantic ballads, the smooth voice, and the platinum records, Kanye suggests that behind the scenes, Barry was peeling back the layers of the industry, uncovering the depth of the exploitation that ran rampant. He wasn't just making music, he was becoming a threat to the established order. Clive Davis, it's alleged, built his empire on the backs of young, vulnerable artists. He lured them in with promises of fame and fortune, then trapped them in restrictive contracts that paid them a fraction of what they were worth. He controlled their careers, dictated their image, and profited immensely from their talent, while keeping them financially dependent. Barry White saw this exploitative system firsthand and wanted no part of it. He refused to become another lamb sacrificed at the altar of Clive's ambition, but he wasn't content to simply save himself. He wanted to dismantle the system, to create a pathway for artists to succeed without being exploited. He recognized the inherent unfairness of the industry and felt a responsibility to challenge it, to protect those who were being taken advantage of. This made him a dangerous adversary for Davis, a disruptor who threatened to expose the dark side of the music business and empower artists to take control of their own destinies. And when Barry decided to speak out, to challenge the system, that's when he became a target, according to Kanye. He's drawing a direct line between Barry's defiance and the forces that sought to silence him. Kanye connects this to a larger pattern of behavior within the industry, suggesting that figures like Clive Davis build their legacies on the broken backs and stifled dreams of countless artists. He's echoing the long-held belief that there's a pre-planned agenda at play, a calculated manipulation of power designed to control the narrative and silence those who dare to challenge the status quo. He points to recent controversies and scandals surrounding other powerful figures in the industry as further evidence of this systemic issue. He's suggesting that Barry White's experience wasn't an anomaly, but rather a prime example of how the industry operates, how it protects its own, and how it crushes those who threaten its carefully constructed power structures. He's painting a picture of an industry built on exploitation, where talent is often secondary to connections, obedience, and the willingness to play the game. And in this narrative, Barry White becomes a tragic hero, a man who dared to challenge the system and paid the price.
Greed is a funny thing. Once you take a bite of it, it tends to turn on you and start eating you up. The industry was making enough money. The industry was growing fast enough. The industry was progressing enough without getting that greedy, that hoggish, becoming that bullish on money. It's a problem in America. Same thing happened to disco. It started out as an art form for the public, and everybody saw it as quick money. Naturally, we're a capitalistic country. Everybody jumped on it, and before you knew it, it was over. The record industry is no different, and we are no exception to greed and the repercussions of greed.
Kanye allegedly says that Barry White wasn't just another naive artist seduced by the allure of fame. He wasn't looking for stardom, he stumbled into it, and once he was in, he saw the industry for what it was, a soul-crushing machine fueled by greed. Barry was someone who refused to compromise his integrity for fame and fortune. He wasn't afraid to call out the industry's toxic nature, openly criticizing the greed that he believed corrupted so many artists. Kanye suggests that Barry tried to warn his peers, to wake them up to the dangers of the industry's manipulative practices, but most, blinded by the promise of success, ignored his warnings. He paints Barry as a lone voice of reason in a sea of ambition and compromise, a man who saw the truth and dared to speak it, even when it made him a target. Kanye also points to the suspicious deaths of several artists under Clive Davis's label, echoing the current speculation surrounding Diddy. He suggests that these weren't just tragic coincidences, but rather part of a larger pattern, hinting at something far more sinister. Barry White, recognizing the danger, made a bold move. He broke free from Clive's control and started his own record label. Kanye portrays Barry as a true entrepreneur, not just a musician, but a businessman, building an empire independent of the established power structure. And he was succeeding, winning Grammys, topping the charts, becoming untouchable. But that's when things started to go wrong. The industry turned on him, opportunities dried up, and he found himself fighting unseen battles. Kanye rejects the idea of coincidence, suggesting that Barry's success posed a direct threat to Clive Davis and the established order. The tapes Barry possessed, the evidence of Clive's alleged misdeeds, became a ticking time bomb, and silencing Barry became a top priority. Kanye frames this as a classic power struggle, a David versus Goliath story, where the giant, fearing exposure, sought to crush the defiant artist who dared to challenge his reign.
I know some guys who worked personally with Clive Davis, and they had to leave him before they hurt him. So I would say, and maybe I'm wrong, that if you tried it with them guys, why you didn't try it with him?
Right. But most likely.
And he never left Clive.
Now, before you brush all this off as just another conspiracy theory or some attempt to smear Clive Davis's name, let's think about what Gene Deal has said. This isn't some random person on the internet. This is Gene Deal, a guy who was right there in the thick of it with Biggie Smalls. He's talked openly about what supposedly went down when Biggie started asking questions about the business side of things, specifically the dealings between Bad Boy Records and Arista Records, which Clive Davis ran. According to Deal, when Biggie began to question the contracts, the money, the control Clive had over Bad Boy through Diddy, things got tense. Suddenly, Biggie wasn't just a hugely successful artist. He was a problem. He was rocking the boat, challenging the established order, and that's never a good look when you're dealing with powerful people like Clive Davis. Deal didn't beat around the bush. He pretty much said that Biggie's curiosity and his willingness to challenge the status quo made him a target. This isn't just hearsay or speculation. It's an account from someone who was there, someone who witnessed the inner workings of the industry and the power dynamics at play. And it makes you wonder, if this is how Clive Davis allegedly treated Biggie when he started asking questions, what might he have been capable of doing to someone like Barry White, who was actively trying to build a whole new system outside of his control? It definitely adds another layer to the story and makes those rumors about Clive a lot harder to dismiss.
Notorious Big had 5 groups, and I think he took it to Atlantic, and he showed me a contract was worth, I think it was $62 or $6 million. $6.2 million or 62 for 5 groups. That was Cameron, Junior Mafia, Little Kim, Tracy Lee, Charlie Baltimore, and the Commission. Supposed to be him, Charlie Baltimore, and it was supposed to be Jay-Z or whatever. Now, listen here. He took those groups to Atlantic. Not Arista. Not Clive Davis. Not a subsidiary to Bad Boy Records. Who you think was madder than a outside of Diddy. Clive Davis, you know his conversation with Puff? Clive Davis is going to say, we need to have a discussion with that guy there. You know why? Because this guy right here took a multi-million-dollar deal elsewhere, and he got famous through Arista and Bad Boy Records. How do this make us look? Our artists that we developed, our artists that we put this money into, took a multi-million-dollar deal to our competitors.
The stories about Clive Davis's alleged cold-blooded nature don't stop with Biggie. The whispers about his apparent disregard for the well-being of the artists under his control have been circulating within the industry for years, painting a picture of a man more concerned with maintaining his power and influence than with the human cost of his ambition. And one of the most disturbing anecdotes is what allegedly happened after Whitney Houston's tragic death. As the story goes, Clive Davis, despite the devastating news, still held his annual pre-Grammy party. And where was this lavish affair held? In the same hotel where Whitney Houston's lifeless body was discovered, just floors above. Imagine that for a second. Music playing, champagne flowing, industry elites mingling and celebrating, while the woman who helped build his empire, a woman whose incredible talent he profited from for years, lay dead just a short elevator ride away. To understand the gravity of the allegations against Clive Davis, consider the circumstances surrounding Whitney Houston's death. On February 11th, 2012, the very day she was scheduled to perform at Davis's pre-Grammy party at the Beverly Hilton, Whitney was found unresponsive in a bathtub. Despite attempts to revive her, she was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m. While the official cause of death was determined to be drowning, combined with heart disease and cocaine use, and no foul play was suspected, the timing and location raised immediate questions. The most controversial aspect of the situation was Clive Davis's decision to proceed with his pre-Grammy party after learning of Whitney's death. The party, held in the same hotel where Whitney's body was still present, struck many as incredibly insensitive and disrespectful. While Davis claimed it was a tribute to Whitney and that her family hadn't requested he cancel the event, the image of a lavish party continuing while the star performer lay dead upstairs fueled speculation and outrage. Not everyone accepted Clive Davis's explanation for proceeding with the party. Whitney Houston's close friend, Chaka Khan, publicly called the decision insanity, stating that it was the opposite of what Whitney would have wanted. Khan argued that Whitney would have insisted on stopping everything, not continuing with a celebratory event just hours after her death. She criticized Davis's claim of the party being a tribute, questioning how someone who genuinely cared for Whitney could find the strength to party so soon after her passing. Further fueling the controversy were allegations that Whitney had been physically assaulted before her death. While the official autopsy report made no mention of such injuries, several industry insiders, including Jaguar Wright, claimed that Whitney's family had seen evidence of physical trauma on her body. These claims, though unsubstantiated by official reports, added another layer of suspicion to the circumstances surrounding Whitney's death and further intensified the criticism of Davis's decision to hold the party. The conflicting narratives and unanswered questions surrounding the event continue to fuel speculation and contribute to the negative perception of Davis within certain circles of the music industry.
You were, I think, going to go to the Clive Davis party.
Yes.
It was a surreal event where Whitney's body was still in the hotel, and there was this sort of party where apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity. And knowing Whitney, I don't believe that she would have said, the show must go on. She was the kind of woman that would say, stop everything. I'm not going to be there. You know, I don't know what could motivate a person to have a party in a building where the person whose life he had influenced so enormously and whose life had been affected by her. So they were like, I don't understand how that party went on.
I had Clive Davis by pure chance in here on Friday night with Jennifer Hudson, and he obviously worshipped Whitney, and I think he must have gone through agony when he heard this news, knowing it was 2 or 3 hours till this event.
Right.
And I think he took the decision to turn it into a tribute to her. And I understand that. I mean, he obviously was wrestling with the right thing to do.
That would have been right if it really was a true tribute, and and a true tribute, might have been a truer, a more honest tribute in my opinion, would have been maybe call everybody together, let's say a prayer, and let's eat dinner and go home.
What is your?
I couldn't get dressed. I was supposed to go to the party. I just got off a plane from Miami at about 5:30. As soon as I hit the tarmac, I found out. I heard, and I couldn't put on makeup. I couldn't get dressed. I couldn't do anything. I was paralyzed. I couldn't do anything.
And the fact that Clive Davis allegedly went ahead with his pre-Grammy party in the same hotel where Whitney Houston died and still received applause and accolades is deeply unsettling to many. It raises the question, what else has he done? What other callous acts has he committed that have gone unnoticed or been swept under the rug? It suggests a culture of complicity, a willingness to overlook or excuse bad behavior in the name of power and influence. Adding another layer of tragedy to this story is the death of Whitney Houston's only child, Bobby Christina Brown, just 3 years after her mother's passing. In an eerily similar scenario, Bobby Christina was found face down and unresponsive in a bathtub in her Georgia home. While she was initially alive and placed in a medically induced coma, she tragically passed away 6 months later at the age of 22. The official cause of death was attributed to immersion associated with drug intoxication, but the manner of death remained undetermined, leaving lingering questions and fueling further speculation. Adding to the tragedy, Bobby Christina's former fiancé, Nick Gordon, who was one of the people who found her in the bathtub, also died of a suspected overdose 3 years later. Bobby Christina's father, Bobby Brown, publicly accused Gordon of involvement in both Whitney and Bobby Christina's deaths, alleging that he supplied them with drugs. However, these claims were met with skepticism by some who pointed to Bobby Brown's own history of drug use and his introduction of Whitney to drugs. Regardless of the circumstances surrounding the acquisition of drugs, many fans believe the focus should be on those who profited from Whitney's and Bobby Christina's deaths. The argument is that artists like Whitney, Michael Jackson, and Prince are often worth more dead than alive, as their music catalogs experience a surge in sales and value after their passing. Furthermore, deceased artists can no longer challenge record labels and other entities for control of their music and finances. This has led some to point fingers at Clive Davis, with some even suggesting his pre-Grammy party was a ghoulish celebration of Whitney's death and the subsequent financial windfall. Similar suspicions have been raised about Diddy and the deaths of artists associated with him, including Biggie Smalls and Kim Porter, perpetuating a narrative of exploitation and questionable circumstances surrounding the deaths of prominent musicians. Jaguar Wright, for example, has openly questioned the circumstances surrounding Biggie's death and the subsequent handling of his unreleased music, suggesting that Diddy benefited financially from his passing. These incidents, taken together, create a disturbing pattern that raises serious questions about the music industry and the potential for exploitation even in death. Now here's where things get really interesting. Some people believe that Clive's fear of Barry White wasn't just about Barry's talent or his growing influence. They think it was about something far more concrete, something far more dangerous. Barry allegedly had receipts, and we're not talking about metaphorical receipts. We're talking about actual evidence of Clive's shady dealings. The whispers suggest that Barry had tapes, maybe recordings of conversations, documents, or some other kind of proof of Clive's exploitative practices, his manipulation of artists, and who knows what else. These tapes, according to the rumors, were the real reason Clive was so terrified of Barry. They were a ticking time bomb, a threat to expose everything he'd worked so hard to build, to shatter his carefully crafted image, and bring his whole empire crashing down. This theory takes the whole narrative to a different level. It's not just a story about a rivalry between two powerful figures in the music industry. It's a story about secrets, lies, and the lengths some people will go to protect themselves. It transforms the narrative from a simple personality clash into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, with potentially devastating consequences for everyone involved. But why would he do all that? He did it to uplift Diddy and his work so that he could control more. Many people point to the curious case of Uptown Records, highlighting the deaths of several key figures associated with the label: Andre Harrell, Heavy D, and Kim Porter. Have you noticed that all of them were reportedly working on tell-all books or documentaries before their deaths, raising questions about whether these projects and their potentially revealing content could have played a role in their untimely demise? Now, if you contrast their fates with Diddy's continued success and apparent invulnerability, do you see how weird all of it is? And while all of this is pretty horrible on its own, there's more to his shady personality that Barry knew of and was about to expose. The story goes that Clive Davis wasn't some lone wolf operating in a vacuum. He had connections, powerful allies, and a network of influence that stretched throughout the music industry. And one of his key connections, it's alleged, was with none other than Sean Diddy Combs. But here's the thing, the whispers suggest that Diddy wasn't the mastermind. He was more like the muscle. Clive was the puppet master, the one pulling the strings from behind the scenes, orchestrating the deals, controlling the narrative, and ultimately reaping the biggest rewards. Diddy was the public face, the one interacting with the artists, the charismatic frontman, but Clive, according to these allegations, was the one calling the shots, making the real decisions, and holding all the power. And the story gets even more complicated. According to Jaguar Wright, Diddy's empire wasn't built solely on his own talent or brilliant business moves.
P. Diddy what to do? Like,
Absolutely.
who tells him what to do?
Clive Davis in the beginning.
She alleges that it was built on the backs of others, people who were deliberately kept in the dark, silenced, and systematically disempowered. She claims Clive played a crucial role in this, making sure that anyone who could potentially challenge Diddy's power was kept marginalized and voiceless. And Wright didn't stop there. She even hinted that the relationship between Clive and Diddy went beyond just business, suggesting something far more personal, far more intertwined, and potentially even more disturbing.
Tells P. Diddy what to do? Like,
Absolutely.
who tells him what to do?
Clive Davis in the beginning. No, he didn't empower him. That a block. He gave him power. And all he had to do was diddle-dee-dee and diddle-dee-dum. Like, he wasn't gonna tell Gene and them that's how he was getting the money.
Right.
Let's be real about that. You think he was going to admit to these he went to school with, who essentially he asked to come to make his G official? Like you heard him say, Christopher Williams, street gangster, Pete Rock, I'll Be Short, they good. You know what I'm saying? Gene Deal. Like, ain't nobody looking at how Puff positioned himself. There was a wall of protection and talent and brilliance around him. Nobody had to look at him for real. And the truth is nobody did. Everybody laughed and joked about him dancing like a in all them goddamn videos. Twirling around in circles and this wild, like, you know. So I'm just saying, they didn't know, and he wasn't telling them.
These allegations paint a picture of a carefully constructed, deeply entrenched power structure, a system designed to benefit those at the top, Clive and Diddy, while exploiting those below. It's a story of manipulation, silenced voices, hidden agendas, and the dark, often unseen machinations of the music industry. It's a story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about how the industry works and the true cost of fame and fortune. So remember those alleged tapes Barry White had? Well, the whispers go even further than just Clive's shady business dealings. People are saying that those tapes contained evidence of something much more scandalous, Clive's presence at Diddy's infamous parties. Now, these weren't your average industry gatherings. They were legendary for their debauchery, often described as wild freak-offs, where pretty much anything went. We're talking potentially illegal activities, the kind of stuff that could ruin careers and land people in serious trouble. And the rumor is that Clive Davis, Mr. Respectable Record Executive, was a guest at these parties. This, if true, would completely shatter his carefully crafted public image. Imagine the headlines. It would have been a PR nightmare, and potentially much worse. If there was any evidence of illegal activity on those tapes, Clive could have faced legal consequences, not just bad press. So, you can see why he might have been terrified of Barry White. It wasn't just about business. It was about protecting his reputation, his freedom, his entire legacy. Barry wasn't just a rival. He was a walking, talking time bomb. He held the key to unlocking a scandal that could have brought Clive's world crashing down. And that, according to the whispers, is the real reason reason why Clive Davis wanted Barry White silenced. So, what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you like this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.